Today we're stepping inside the Maximalist Mississippi home of tastemaker Emily Ryan, where tradition meets color in the most joyful way. Her vibrant and thoughtfully collected spaces are drenched in holiday magic. From a beautifully layered tree to a stunning dining room alive with pops of pink, each corner is full of traditional Christmas charm.
I love a historic looking tree. And to me, this is kind of that old world Christmas with the pomanders and the rust and the gold and the bells.
Today, she opens her doors to share a holiday home that's as warm and welcoming as it is beautiful, a celebration of the season perfectly at home. To watch Emily's full home tour ad-free, where she shows off her jewel box guest bath, scan the QR code on screen, or visit homeworthyplus.com for access to all of our latest episodes ad-free and to receive other exclusive membership perks.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Emily Ryan. Welcome to my house. Come on in.
This Christmas, Homeworthy invites you into a season of wonder. Over the next 25 days, we're stepping into homes that sparkle with holiday cheer, where garlands tumble from mantles, ornaments hang like tiny treasures, and every corner comes alive with joy, merriment, and the spirit of the season.
And I don't know how many ornaments are on the tree. Last year I got 1,400 on, and they were made all over the world. There were ones made in America, Poland, Italy, Japan, just a wide variety, and I love them all.
We'll visit homes where traditions are cherished, where beauty is made by hand, and where rituals become memories that last a lifetime.
We make about 400 of these rolls every year, and on Christmas Eve, our family delivers them to certain families within the area, and our kids get to participate in choosing who gets them.
From quiet moments by the fire to happy gatherings around the table, we're celebrating the way the holidays transform our spaces and fill them with magic.
We do quite a dressy table because it's Christmas and it's a party and you want it to feel special, but you also, it's nice to make the table a little bit kind of imperfect, a little bit higgledy-piggledy. I want people to feel at a party in my home as if they're kind of wearing a ball gown but going barefoot. You know, it's that kind of high-low moment, the kind of specialness, but also the coziness of being really comfortable.
So pour something warm, settle in, and join us for Homeworthy's 25 Days of Christmas, a season-long celebration of holiday magic. To watch Homeworthy's entire Christmas collection ad-free, visit homeworthyplus.com or scan the QR code on screen. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name's Emily Ryan, and I'm a blogger with Little House of Chic blog. Welcome to my house in Oxford, Mississippi. When we found this house, it was actually during COVID, and my husband and I were sitting at home, and we were always dreaming of having a place in Oxford, Mississippi, which is our alma mater. And one night I was having a glass of wine on my patio in Atlanta, and this house came up, and it was right within the range that we wanted to purchase, and it had everything I was looking for. And so that very night we messaged them to put in an offer, and with just a couple days we were under contract. So it was like absolute serendipity, and we've been here for a couple years now since. While this house wasn't exactly a flip job, it did need a lot of personality. It was kind of a white box when I came in, and so I'm someone who is definitely a maximalist, which you'll see. And when I started decorating this house, I realized that with the open concept, I needed to infuse a lot of different color and texture to make sure that this house worked. And so it's been a joy to put this together over the last 3 years, and I'm really excited to see all the changes that it's taken on. So my love of holiday decor and going all out for the season really did start with my childhood. My father, who definitely is tight with his money, he let us really go all out every holiday season because Christmas was his favorite. We would hire a decorator at the house and everything would be transformed so magical, and that's just an experience that's always stayed with me. And so I think that one of the ways that you can show that you care for your family and your friends is creating an experience for them, whether it's as simple as a bottle of wine and a cheese board or going to the extreme that I like to do for holiday decorating. But it's just a little way that I show my love for them and the holiday season. Welcome to our dining room. The first thing that I have to share are these new chairs that I just got. I actually found these from another designer in Atlanta who had them for a couple years and never got around to touching them up. And so I purchased them. He had a warehouse sale and I just got them recovered in this gorgeous linen. So before that, they were in kind of like that old school 80s silk. And one of the things that I always really love is adding thoughtful details. And to me, this is such a Southern thing. And so I went and had my husband and my monogram put on the back of the chairs and had my upholsterer add that in, which I think just gives it such a thoughtful detail, and it's so interesting, and I'll never be able to resell them, but that's okay. Pacing through, so this year, what I wanted to do in the dining room was make something that felt kind of like a garden theme. So when I first started this room, I had a mural on one wall. I had worked with a brand, and once I had the mural in place, I thought, I need to add a lot of personality in here. And so what I did is I had my handyman actually take some of this gorgeous lattice work and I framed it out into boxes to give it a little bit more of a modern look on something that's very old school French. And we painted it to match the color of my mural. And I love the way that it turned out. It's kind of like a wallpaper, but 3D. And so for Christmas, what I decided to do was take these gorgeous large bowls and my pedestals and fill them with a tree and do some really gorgeous garland. We've got pearl here that I just think is so gorgeous, and some really pretty rhinestones with pearls, and just kind of did this drippy look with the varying garland and ornaments. And these are all actually Italian glass blown. So they're really stunning and truly one of a kind, and I love them. And then my grandma, who is still with us, by the way, she just turned 94. I went and visited her in California just a couple weeks ago for her birthday. And I stayed at her house, and while I was there, I saw this goose. And, you know, a lot of people have their eyes on things when they go to their grandparents' house, and I doubt very many people want a wooden goose. But for me, I saw it and I said, I have to have that thing. So I asked her, I said, what are your plans for the goose? And she was like, please take it with you. So they used to live in Arkansas years ago, and this was hand carved by a local artisan at a craft fair. And so actually my grandfather was the one who wanted it. And so she let me take it home, and I christened him with a little bow for the holiday season. And if you look up from the goose, this gorgeous ribbon this holiday season, it has such a Cinderella effect. I almost wanted to get like little birds that looked like they were, you know, holding up the sides like the Cinderella movie, but I couldn't find anything that would work. But I love the way it looks on this Chippendale mirror. Next thing that I want to show off is this gorgeous chandelier. I'm a big auction person, and living in Mississippi, one of the best auction houses is actually in New Orleans, and they get French antiques all the time. So I saw this chandelier, and I woke up one Saturday morning and it was up for bid, and I needed something new in here. And so I ended up being the highest bidder and got it and had it installed, and I have just absolutely loved it. I replaced the light bulbs with these silicone tipped bulbs, and that just kind of softens the light. When you're in a dining room, you really don't want harsh lighting that when you look up, it hurts your eyes. It should always feel soft to look up. And so the silicone tip is a really great way to do that if you don't want to use a shade. I took these ornaments and dripped them from the chandelier. This is actually a ribbon like you would use on the end of a balloon, for example. And so if you double knot it, it'll do a great job, and it's nice and light so it doesn't, do too much. You could also use fishing line. And then I saw these gorgeous butterflies and decided it would look so pretty to have them just kind of look like they're cascading up the chandelier. Once again, that kind of Cinderella garden feel. And so I really love the way that those came out. And for the table, I got this flower arrangement done. And one of the things that I like to do whenever I'm doing one color around a space is wake it up with something. And so I picked this hot pink. And when I was showing them the photos, they're like, "Are you sure about that?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And so the pink, what it does is it just kind of helps make everything feel more lively. And you can even take some of your extra ornaments and just stick them right into your flower arrangement so that it matches the space that you're working in. And all of a sudden you have a really cohesive look that is great. And another one of my decorating tips that I love to do for the holidays is using a wreath as part of the centerpiece. It fills up a lot of the space. I've got this gold pedestal here. And if I were hosting a dinner party, I might also spray paint some pears in gold and place those all around. But for simplicity, I just did a wreath today and I thought it looked so great. And I'm a big plate collector. So these big pieces of furniture are absolutely stuffed with plates and silverware and napkins. And that love came from my grandmother. So when I was a kid, my grandma had a linen closet that was like someone's regular closet of just plates and linens and silverware. And whenever we would come and stay, she would let my cousin and I pick out what we wanted to pick for the table. And that was so special to us because we just thought it was so magical. And so I kind of carried that tradition on. And so when I'm in an antique store or if I'm traveling, that's one of the things that you can kind of collect that's really easy. You're always going to find them when you're on the road. And so you just pick up 4 here, 6 there, and it's okay to mix and match. So what I've actually done is I've taken a larger blue charger, and then I just put a very classic blue and white everyday dinner plate on top of that. One of the other things that I like to do in addition to or in place of a name card is actually get our initials monogrammed onto napkins, because most of the time I bring the same family around every season, so why not let them have their own napkin? If they stain it, they'll have it next year. And then I placed, these were actually little toppers for gifts. And so I just popped the ribbon out of the back and placed those on each place setting, and I thought it was just the cutest little touch. And I also love, I talk about these on my blog all the time because I'm obsessed, acrylic blocks. They are so cheap on Amazon. And what I do is I just use my printer at home. This is thin paper, and I create a design in Canva and I cut them out. And as soon as you put them into your acrylic block, it just kind of sets them off. It makes it look really good. And so I do this all season long. I also use this for like name cards and place setting for food. So if I'm having a buffet here, this will say, green beans or whatever it's going to be, and I'll actually hang on to those because a lot of times I do serve the same things year after year. And then talking about that color scheme again, these actually were a find from Cabo in Mexico. These draperies I had made, and they are a pitch pleat, which I love. And I just added a really nice decorative trim. And I love a good tie back because number one, they hold your pleats in place, which is great. So you don't have to keep retraining. And then the other thing is that it just kind of makes the space feel really nice and opened up. And so I love the way that that looks, especially next to the mural. So this is the mural that I've been talking about. And one of the things I like about this room, especially if you're like looking in the mirror over across the way and you look over here, it literally feels like you're in the house, in your garden room, looking out into the trees. And I just love the way that it makes the space feel. And it really gives it a lot of atmosphere. When people first walk into this room and turn the corner and see the mural, they're like, whoa, where did that come from? Because you're not expecting it. And so this is an open concept house. And so in order to be able to kind of work some character in, having like a hidden wall like this is a great space where you can take some big risks, like putting a mural. And there are a lot of ladies who I know want to infuse some interest into their open concept, but find it challenging. And so this is one of the ways that you can do that. And then going back to kind of that idea of waking things up, we've got all this beautiful blue and creams and pearl. And so what I did was I decided to pop some red in here. Red looks so great against blue. And so I usually do a Christmas party every year. And what I decided to do was a little cranberry French 75. So all you need is some Prosecco, a little liqueur, and then a pop of cranberry with some cranberries that are real inside. And it is just the best sipper. I love a good spritz, so that is a good one that's not gonna get people spilling the cookies onto your rug after too many. And usually what I'll do when I'm hosting for a party is I like to use these big servers to spread cocktails. One of the things about Southern hospitality is that people shouldn't have to ask where things are. It should all be out where they can see them. And so you'll want to put, your wine bottle opener out if they brought their own alcohol, a bottle opener if they brought beer, glassware should always be out. There should always be a couple of cocktails that are already pre-mixed and ready so that when someone gets in, they don't have to ask you if they can serve themselves. They just know they can come over and grab one. And those are some of the tips that help people to feel really relaxed when you're hosting this holiday season. And another thing that I've done, I'm all about little special touches. And so I worked with someone on Etsy for some really fun custom cocktail napkins. And so they all have little sassy sayings, and I have more of these in my living room. This one says, "My Christmas spirit comes by the glass. The tree isn't the only thing getting lit." On Santa's bad list, we've got all kinds of them. So I actually, for the party that I did 2 years ago, had a huge stack of these as like a little giveaway item for everyone that came that night. It was their little gift to take home. And it was so fun to watch everyone go through their cocktail napkin and be like, "Oh yeah, this one's my personality." And they ended up finishing their collections, which was great. And it was a great conversation starter too, because people would walk around to others that they didn't know and be like, "Okay, which cocktail napkin did you pick?" So that's a really fun little thing. I like something that starts a conversation for people who might not know each other. And I think that's a good tip if you're planning to host some people that are new to one another. So right off from my kitchen, we have this really beautiful old French antique. This was actually the very first piece of furniture that I ever purchased for myself. I was right out of college, and it was a whopping $400. And to me at the time, that was so much money to spend on a piece of furniture. And so I've had this for years, and I kept it in its original character. I decided not to paint it just because I think it has such a special story. And it really kind of took me on my journey for designing and for my house. And so going back to that little note about Southern hospitality, I always like to make sure that I've got an ample amount of different spirits out for people to be able to help themselves. And so I went ahead and set up a little display. This is actually also my grandmother's beautiful silver tray. And one of the other things that I've done is I really love the look of taxidermy like this, like the old English kind, not the your husband went and got a deer kind. But I think these look really beautiful, the mounts with the beautiful carved wood. And I just paired that with something really nice and more delicate, like this really pretty blue and white piece of pottery here. And another one of my favorite things around the holidays are pomanders. And these are fantastic because they're not real, and so I can use them time and time again. And I had a plan to do my own trees and didn't end up being able to actually do it. So what I really want to encourage is, there's always something, there's always a workaround. You don't have to stress yourself out. If it looks great and it's not real, that's fine. It still gives the effect and you don't have to worry about it. And the other thing that I love, you can always find a really gorgeous piece at an antique store. In fact, just this past weekend, I knew I needed a little something for ice. And so I popped up to Sheffield's and I found this gorgeous cut crystal. And you don't always have to use an ice bucket. You can always use something footed or a big bulb, just something that looks pretty and seasonal and kind of goes with your decor. And I popped a cute little scoop in here with an antler to kind of play off of what I've already got going on. And it's pewter and looks great. But you always want to make sure that you've got an ice scoop so that people aren't putting their fingers in your ice. And so the other thing that I love, these candlesticks, yes, they're candlesticks. I found at High Point in North Carolina when I was there. And what I did, now we've got these great little Genesis lights. And so I just pop those in to a shade that's magnetic. And then I just use that to place it right on top. And it balances, and that's a great way that you can make your candlesticks into lamps if you're looking for a space that you don't have a whole lot of room, but you definitely need a little pop of light. That's a really great and creative way that you can do it. And the sky's the limit on what you can find. And also, if it doesn't fit, you can always melt a little candle wax in the top of it, pop it in there, let it dry, and then forevermore it'll have its own little mold that you can put your little cell into, and it works great as a lamp, and I've loved them. So one of the things that you'll notice for the holidays is my staircase, and this year I decided to have some fun and I wanted to do hot pink and orange. And the orange first came just because I knew I was using a lot of citrus this season, and so I thought it'd be fun to kind of work that in to the decor. And so when I saw this gorgeous orange ribbon, it's kind of silky, I loved the way it looked. And then I saw this beautiful hot pink, and it's got a lot of bling like me. I love a little bling. And so I added that into, and then did these magnolias. So for me, this is kind of a new look on Southern garland and design. We've got a lot of the classics like the magnolia and the pomander. And so once again, always have fun with your Christmas decor and use something that feels maybe a little brave. And I promise you it's gonna work out. So once this all got put together, I loved it, and added some bells on here. And then another little tip for Christmas decorating is that sometimes your cedar garland looks a little thin. And so my first year, I got way too little amount of garland that I needed, and it looked pretty wimpy. And in fact, it was so bad that I didn't even post any photos that year, but I had spent a fortune on getting garland. And so one of the tips that I learned when I was visiting some showrooms this summer in Atlanta for Christmas decorating is that they actually take 2 or 3 garland and then they zip tie them together to get that fuller effect. And the other nice thing about using a couple is that you can actually weave your lights in a lot easier and hide them. And so I think that the effect that I learned is just amazing. And so if that's been something you've been struggling with, this is a great way that you can beef up the garland on your staircase. So it's kind of always been a dream for me to have a leopard print runner in my staircase. I saw it in a design book or a magazine years ago. I can't even remember. I mean, in my early 20s. And when we moved to this house, we had nothing on the stairs originally. And it was kind of a tripping hazard because they're kind of steep. And also we host a lot of people for game day weekends. And so you can imagine if someone's had a couple of beverages and they're trying to head downstairs in the middle of the night, that's a little spooky. So what I did was I decided that I was definitely going to be doing a runner. And when I went to our local carpet store, I saw this and I fell in love with it. And one of the reasons that I liked this particular leopard print was because of the amount of dark variation. And what's great about that is that it hides dirt really, really well. And my husband was pretty skeptical when I told him we were gonna do leopard print, but he's ended up really liking it. And a large part of that is because, you know, if someone spills a drink or anything like that, you cannot see it on this rug, and it cleans up like a dream. So it's been a really great addition. And then also there's this great estate sale store that's in Atlanta that I love to go to. And I knew I needed a little piece for right when you walked in. And I found this mirror, And it's, I think it's a Trumeau mirror. And once again, kind of like the French New Orleans vibe. I loved the way it looked. One of the things about Oxford is that since New Orleans is kind of close to us, a lot of people go on trips there. And so you'll see throughout Oxford, there are lots of nods to New Orleans style. And so because of that, I decided to pull some into this house in various areas. So you'll notice a lot of French antiques. And so that's one of them. And then another thing that New Orleans is known for are these beautiful big black lanterns. And so I found this one and put a candle in it and love the way that it turned out. And if you've never been to New Orleans, you need to go because it is always incredible. They have some of the best food, the best antique stores. And where I actually grew up in Pensacola, Florida, it's a pretty quick drive. So I've always kind of been somewhere that was near New Orleans. So it's been a big influence on my designing as well. All right, welcome to my living room. This is the space that I spend the majority of my time in, and same with when we're entertaining. My husband and I love this room, and my husband gives me a lot of autonomy on decorating. Obviously, you've seen how much hot pink is all over the place, and so when it came to one design decision that he wanted for this room, I had to say yes. And so you'll see I have a big 80-inch elephant in the room back here, and that was his one request. And since we do live in a football town, it made a lot of sense to me to have a big TV for game day. So he got his wish, and I got all the rest of mine. So marriage is all about compromise, and this 80-inch TV has gotten me a lot of design decisions, like my leopard print runner, so I do not fight it. So the space, once again, this is open concept. And I wanted to add grass cloth in here, but because it ties into the rest of the house, I knew I needed to work it in a thoughtful way. And so one of the things I had done was I paneled out the walls and I just popped the grass cloth inside. And one of the things that I love about this way of working in color and wallpaper into a room is that it does, number one, it doesn't require that you need as much wallpaper. So it is a little bit of a cost savings, which is great. But the other part of it is that it's a really intentional, great way to break up big walls. And especially because all the walls in this house are so big, it lets me also be able to work in smaller pieces of artwork to panel that in. And so I've got some of my collection that I've just started on. And one of my favorite pieces is actually this really beautiful antique screen. It was kind of falling apart. And so I had someone kind of patch it back together for me. And it still has a lot of that antiquity, but I love that about it. And so we just put some little hangers on the back of it and popped those up on the wall, and it's worked great in the space. And then the other thing that was a little bit of an afterthought after I had done the wallpaper were my sconces in here. And once again, these are battery operated. And so that is what I love, is that, you know, sometimes when you're designing your house, you don't always have the end story in mind. And so this kind of gives you some flexibility not to have to rip down your wallpaper and start all over again. You can just put it right where it belongs and it'll work great. And I love that about these new rechargeable sconces that they've come out with. And so for Christmas, I really wanted to set this wall off. And so we came up, I had some help this year. I had a wonderful designer from Atlanta come up and help me for Christmas, who does a lot of showroom decorating. And so that was such a game changer. I've never seen anyone put bows out faster. I have a lot of skills, but bow making is not one of them. And so I was very thankful to have him. These pomegranates are so beautiful, and they're actually a sit-about. And so these worked great in that little spray that we put together. And then another thing that I love are these big pine cones during the holiday season. And I was a little bit early to find them this season. So I found these ornaments, and I like them anyways, because while we have a real pine cone back there, we're able to pop in a little bit of color and still work with the overall look and feel. And so I really like how those came out. My sofa was one of the last pieces that I did in this room. And originally I had a cream sofa, like so many of us do. And then I decided that I really wanted something kind of loud in here. And so I've always admired Latouche fabric, and I really, really like the brown. And so I decided that that was the color that I wanted to put on my sofa. And as I was designing this, then I decided that I wanted to go ahead and add some traditional boxes to it as well. And then I took that same trim and had them use it for the cording. And so the entire sofa is corded in this trim. And I love the way that it came out. And I just think that it adds so much to the room. And this room was the first place that I feel like, for the first time in my life, I really played with pattern a lot. And so this has been a really great lab for me to see what works well together. And so for the holiday season, I kind of wanted to pull from the colors that I had in these really pretty sprays that we had created. And so this was a pillow that I had had for years and years. It's kind of glam, it's a little modern. And so what's nice is it kind of pulls that gorgeous pomegranate. And then I found these when I was just at High Point, and they're a La Tigra that I absolutely love. And I just thought it went so great with the lime green, and it's fun. And I love a punch of kind of this real bright green in a room, because once again, I love to wake things up. So this to me wakes up the room really well. And then another one of my favorite things for the holidays are faux fur pillows. I just think that they add a lot of coziness to a space. And while it's not exactly 30 degrees here yet, it makes the space feel like it's cooler outside than it is, which I think is fun. Moving on, these chairs were actually an antique store find. Someone had given them away, and they were, I have two of them. And what's funny is that they were in two different fabrics, and I found them at separate times. But whenever I find a good bargain, I always make sure that I purchase it and I hang on to it until I have a use for it. And so I one day was just ready to get them recovered, ready to use them in this room. I love a swivel glider for a living room because it helps people be able to turn to the TV if you're watching a movie or a game, or turn in to talk to someone. So I love to use those in living rooms. And I found this celery green, and it's so pretty and soft. And so I started with that, and then worked in this very traditional navy check, and just kept playing from there. And it was actually funny. I found this lamp online, and I loved it. And I didn't really read the dimensions because I had been at market, and I thought that I knew in my mind how big the lamp was that I saw when I was there. And so I got this home, and I was like, oh my God, this thing is as big as me. I mean, if I stand next to this, it practically comes down to my hip. So when I got it, and I love the way that it fills up the space, but the thing was, when I knew I wanted to get a custom shade, I was like, I'm gonna have to go get hula hoops and tie this together to make a shade. But luckily we found one that was big enough, and I worked with some great people in Virginia that do custom lamps, and they helped me on the size. And so I just did this. This is a Formois shade again, this fabric. And what I love about their fabrics is that they really do cast a beautiful glow in all of their stuff. And so this really helped the room feel cozy and added a lot of warmth. And I love foo dogs. They are so fun. I found these on an antique store on Etsy, and the colors just kind of helped pop everything around the room. And I kind of feel like he needs a little Santa hat. So if y'all find a little something, send it to me. So let's talk about the tree this year. I love a historic looking tree. And to me, this is kind of that old world Christmas with the pomanders and the rust and the gold and the bells. And so to kind of modernize it, I took some wicker bells that I found. And then my designer that came and helped me, he actually wired these bells that I had inside, which I thought was so clever. And we just took some pine cones and partridge in a pear tree. Really throughout the house, I have a couple nods to that song, which has been fun. I don't exactly have 7 swans a-swimming, but I do have a goose, so that kind of worked. And for the top of the tree, what I love to do is a lot of ribbon usually. And what I'll do is I'll usually take about 3 or 4 different ribbons and I'll go somewhere to have them make me a big old bow. And so this year, since I had some help, he came and did some beautiful loops and then put a bunch of sprays at the top. And I think that that really adds a lot instead of just a simple tree topper, which those are great too. But if you're looking for something a little maximalist, like what I've got, that's a really great way to do it with stuff that you've already got in the house. And we kind of pulled that through to the mantle as well. And since I've got this big TV, I've decided to put a fake fire on it. And that way, since it's so warm outside still, we have the look of the fire without the heat. And we took some really pretty cedar garland. That is my favorite garland, is cedar. And these are actually not real dried oranges, so I don't have to worry about bugs. But they look incredible. And then I've just kind of collected bleached antlers as I find them. I love them for Thanksgiving and just to add some texture. And so pop those up here to add a little interest. And this year, my husband and I are asking Santa for a special gift, a little puppy. We are preparing for him. And so I got him this little custom dog bed made in leopard print so that it's truly fit for a king. And then of course, every good boy needs a good little toy box. So I went and found some fun Christmas themed toys and got his little name put here, Bentley. And so that'll be his little perch when we get him. So one of the things that I really like in design is obviously adding a lot of fun to a space. I think if a home is too stuffy, people feel uncomfortable. And so I found this bust at an estate sale, and it is heavy. I dress him up every season. So in the spring, he wears bunny ears. In the summer months, he wears a Panama hat. And at Christmas, he's naughty. So that just is a little conversation starter, and I think it's really fun just to have a little joke in a room that people can talk about. And back to layering in old and new things. These are actually the very first Christmas stockings when my husband and I were dating that we bought and had our names put on. And they have such a sweet memory, and so I wanted to use them. And so I took our newer and a little bit more glitzy ones and just put them together. And also, bonus, you get more gifts this way. And you know what fits in these is jewelry fits really well. So tip, ladies, get 2. And while we don't have kids yet, I still like to put out cookies and milk for Santa to entice him, maybe to bring me a puppy or some jewelry or all the things Santa baby does. So I found this gorgeous cake at Whole Foods, and I loved it because I thought it was so perfect. It's like cookies for Santa. And I love to bake. I actually baked in college at a place called Emily's Bakery. Hilariously enough, people would be like, "Do you own this place?" I'm like, "I'm in college." No. But, when I'm busy in a bind, Kroger has the most incredible bakery cookies. No one can ever tell the difference. And I love to buy these when I'm hosting parties or having people over. And once again, I told you guys I love a fun detail. So I've got all my fun little cocktail napkins, and I keep these up year round, but they all have something funny, like drink up and spill the tea. Will I need pants or a bra? Then no. Stop staring at my top shelf. They're all silly. Pouring one out for my reputation. So I always have these for people because, once again, it's something fun and makes your house not so serious. And the last thing that I'll point out while we're in here is some of my bookshelves and some of the things that I've done on the other side of the room. So first, this, by the way, is the most impressive purchase that I've ever found. This is a Brighton Pavilion chair, and I found this for $25. That was incredible. The cushion was about 11 times that. And I had a gorgeous custom trim put on it. But I just love this piece, and it's definitely not somewhere you're gonna sit down. So kind of sending that message through some needlepoint pillows. This one says, "I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, but I'll totes drink the red," which red wine's always my favorite in the holidays. But just, putting some stuff on there that kind of say, this isn't a sitting chair. But I love that little piece. And bookcases, this is actually the first house that we ever lived in that had bookcases. And so I had to collect and collect. And so I just want to say it does take a while to have that collected look. And I love to shop at antique stores. And so I found, I have found so many great things since I've moved to Mississippi. There's some really great antique stores all around here. And almost every time I go, I find something fun. But I have like an old picture and some bone inlay. And this was a piece that I found at our local art festival. And even one of my obsessions is little spoons. I've always loved little spoons. You can use them for caviar, sugar, whatever. And so I'll collect those when I find them. And back to acrylic, which I love. You can take something as simple as an acrylic box that you can find on Amazon and put your little trinkets. And that's just a way to make it feel special and kind of make it feel intentional. And then another thing, I love to collect wood carved animals. So I actually, on the other side, I have some wood carved birds, but I found this turtle and it reminded me of growing up at the beach, a little sea turtle. And so I thought it was just really fun. And so now he has a little home in my bookshelf. I found these awesome wicker urns that I love and placed them on some great acrylic bases. And the thing I like about that is it still lets the light permeate through the room. It doesn't block it out. And I'll usually dress these up seasonally, so I can do orchids or whatever, depending on the season. And so for Christmas, I just decided to do some really great sprays of magnolia. And then I just took some wreaths that are something I used in the past and put them as the base just to add in, the berries and some of the fun things that included. And then I love these chairs. They're usually in front of our mantle, but for all the Christmas gifts and everything, I've just pushed them over here. And you'll notice I like a lot of Asian antiques too. And so I found these, and they were from a historic home actually, where we moved from, Roswell, Georgia. And so I picked those up and then just popped a fun little modern fabric on top, and love the way that they push the space. And one of the nice things about having little chairs is you can pull them in to have more people for conversation. So I think it's great to always have an extra set of 2 chairs on hand for when you're hosting. My home style is somewhat traditional, but with some modern mix, and I like to infuse a lot of different styles. I also like to say that I'm a Southern designer, which means that I basically have definitely studied a lot of what makes Southern interior design. So you'll see lots of natural, like wicker, and also I grew up on the Florida Gulf Coast. And so I love little nods to that, whether it's with colors that I use or little pieces of coral and things like that. So I definitely keep my roots, and a lot of my design style tells a story about who I am as well. My love of interior design started actually when I was a kid, and I couldn't even remember if that was true. And then my husband was digging through a box of mine that my mom had kept, and we actually found that I had made a little card, a business card that I passed out to neighbors that said interior design. I didn't even spell it correctly. So I loved it since I was little. And I think part of that was simply because when I would go to my grandmother's house, she was definitely also a Southern maximalist. And her house always made a really big impact on me, down to the crisp linens that she would use. And she always loved to dress the table. And so she's a big part of my inspiration. So now we're up at the top of my staircase, and one of the things that I loved about this house when we first saw it and decided to buy it was how large and grand the top of the stairs was. I love the wood. This is actually heart of pine, so it kind of gives an antique look to the house. And then also we've got these really beautiful wrought iron banisters in the house as well. Once again, that give that kind of nod to the New Orleans style. And so what I've done is I've carried my garland all the way upstairs and tied in all those colors. And then I found these beautiful antique pieces of artwork at a little estate sale in Atlanta. And when I saw them, I was like, those are gonna be absolutely perfect for the top of my staircase. And so I had those installed, and then to kind of set them off in all this height and space that we have up here. Also, we took some beautiful magnolia garland and put some bells with those fun colors again and a little bit of the garland that we just saw downstairs, and just popped those into place. And I think that it looks awesome when you're up here and looking down the hallway, and absolutely so charming at night. And then also I've got these really pretty big chests. So one of the things about this house is that our closet space, unfortunately, is limited. And so I've got lots of big pieces of furniture as storage for my husband and I, we both love clothes. We both love shoes. And so that's where a lot of our stuff lives, are in these in common spaces like upstairs. But it works great for us, and it's been a great solution. And then also to kind of play up the height, I took these modern mirrors. So one of the things that I love to do when I'm decorating is mix antiques with modern pieces so that it all feels really fresh and interesting. And so these are a little bit more on the modern side. Same with the lamps. And they kind of reminded me of like a swanky French hotel. So I love the way that they look. And even not during the holiday season, I'll put candles out here and different things to make this space feel really cool when you walk up the steps. And I carried some of the ornaments from downstairs and had this gorgeous little arrangement done. Just took a little pedestal and some florist foam and stuck, one of the things about your garland is as you're decorating, little pieces fall off. Don't throw those away. You can hang on to them and stick them into floral foam and have an arrangement. And just a couple of sprays too can make something, one man's trash, another person's treasure, with a really gorgeous little arrangement like this. And this little wreath here is a brooch wreath that I got a couple years ago, and I loved the way it looked. It was a little small for on top of the mirrors. So what we did is we popped a cedar wreath behind it just to give it a little bit more fluff. And once again, layering things is a great way that you can add some bulk to your Christmas decor. So even if you think that something isn't working for your space, I'm sure that you can always find a way that you can kind of blend to make sure that they work. So we're in my primary bedroom, and this space has really tall ceilings. And so a canopy bed was something that I always really wanted. And once we finally got this house, I knew it was finally going to become a reality. So I found this actually at an outlet, and it was the first piece that I actually purchased for this house, and I've absolutely loved it. And so for the holidays, what I decided to do was just take a really simple garland and drape it down and pop a little bit of color on the back. And over time, once the canopy got in here, it kind of took up a lot of space on the wall. And so I decided to get some smaller nightstands. And I found these actually on Facebook Marketplace. And they're Italian wood, hand inlaid. They're absolutely gorgeous. This person did not know what he had. And so I got these and then decided that I wanted also a very traditional lamp in here. And so I found these gorgeous antique alabaster lamps and then popped a custom shade on top. One of the things you'll see throughout my house is I'm a really big fan of custom lampshades, because not only can they kind of give the look that you're hoping for your lamp, but also depending on what color that you pick and what pattern, they can cast the right glow that you want for the space. And so when I very first started on this room, I knew that I wanted it to feel kind of like the Ritz-Carlton, like a beautiful hotel room that was kind of Parisian. And so I started layering in accents that to me kind of gave that feel. And the first thing that I did, this room was actually dark brown. And I used to be white everywhere. Every single house I had before this, I did lots of white and cream and not a lot of color. And so I've experimented with this house, which has been really fun, but blue is my favorite color. And when I saw this wallpaper from Schumacher, I knew it was right for the space. And because I didn't want to put too much wallpaper everywhere and have it feel busy, I decided to panel it out. And so what we did for the smaller ones is we made the panels small enough to where we could fit the full pattern inside. and then centered it on the back wall. And what I think that did is it just kind of broke up these really big walls, and it kind of quieted the pattern. Even though it is a quiet pattern already, I just think that breaking things up kind of helps it to feel softer. And so I love the way that it came out. And then I actually just recently had these made, and I love the colors. One of the things that I really like is a Dutch Euro. They're bigger pillows. I'm someone who works from home, and what I love about these is that they're like the perfect size for your back if you're working on your laptop or watching a movie at night. So I really love a Dutch Euro. And another thing that I really love are these big bolster pillows. I have these in every single one of my bedrooms in a different color, and partially it's because I live with, a former football player who can't stand having to take 100 pillows off the bed. So this is an easy way that you can really pick it up. It's not heavy. You can throw it into the closet. It's foam on the inside, but it still looks great, and it's not something that's, gonna break your back to take off the bed. And then on the other side of the room, I have a little reading kind of setup. We've got a lot of windows in this house, which is beautiful, and I love it for natural light, but it does not insulate well. And so in the South, we have harsh seasons. We have really hot summers and really cold winters. And so I keep a fan in every room. I know that's a decorator faux pas, but I have to. It gets to be like over 100 degrees in the summertime, and my husband runs hot anyways, and frankly, so do I. So sorry, we're keeping the fans. That's just a Southern rule. And so the other thing that I added in here for the winter months is this fireplace. It's actually electric, and it was the chicest electric fireplace I had ever seen. I found it online, and that itself is the fireplace, but it came with this really beautiful mantle that had this dental molding, and I thought it was so gorgeous. And so it looks great, and it adds so much to the space, and it really warms it up in the winter. And I've just been super pleased with it. And then I have a frame TV in here. My husband and I were on the fence for years about having a television in the bedroom, and we do host people a lot, and typically I don't like to put TVs in bedrooms because it can disturb other guests. If there's someone who's watching a movie late and someone else is trying to sleep, that's really frustrating. And so in the past, I've not done that, but for our own personal bedroom, I decided that I did want something where I could kick back when it's football season, and he wants to watch game day from sunup till sundown. I need a break. And so I come up here and watch whatever reality TV series I'm into at the time. And the other thing that I recently added, these chairs were actually kind of like a toss away at an antique, really it was more like a flea market. I found these, they actually had a fan back at first. They were like that 80s, everyone's grandma who had a beach house or condo, I grew up at the beach, remember, had these fan coral backs, and I bought them just because I loved how little they were. And so I knew that they would fit into a bedroom eventually. And so I hung on to them for about 4 years before I had a place that I wanted to put them. And I had my upholsterer, he's incredible, in Atlanta, and we just completely reconstructed the design of it, but the frame was actually cedar. And so it's nice to sometimes hang on to things that your grandmother had, because if you keep them and you recover them, you can actually find that the frame might be a lot more solid than what's out there today. And so that's one of the things that I love about antique shopping, is that the quality of your pieces is still very good. And then I found this quilt. This is something I've recently started to collect, our quilts. We didn't really have anyone in the family that did that as a hobby, even though that is a very Southern thing to do for grandmas. And so I've started collecting them, and I do realize some quilts come with an odor or some marks, so it actually has been a little bit of a challenge to find them that are in really good quality and don't have that odor. However, I will say that there are some really great detergents that you can find for old quilts that will remove that fragrance and also remove the yellow from a quilt. You can go on Amazon and find it, and it works wonders. I've used it on a lot of pieces and it's really rescued them, and now this is like one of my favorite pieces. This piece at the front of my bedroom is a French antique, and it's a little secretary. There's a lot of stuff hidden in here. And once I got this into the spot, I found this gorgeous lamp that I loved, the crystal. It's kind of glam. And then I took my old veil fabric from my wedding and I turned it into a lampshade. And that way it's not something that's just sitting in a closet hanging around. It's a way that I could actually integrate that piece of our wedding day into our bedroom. And I love the way that it turned out, and it casts a really pretty glow in here. Welcome to my guest room. So since we live in a college town, you'd be real surprised at how many people have come out of the woodwork to want to come and stay for a game day weekend. So we have had a lot of visitors since we moved here. Obviously, we went to Ole Miss, and so a lot of our old friends from college, when there's a big game weekend, whether it's baseball season or football, they want to come and stay with us. So we do host people a lot, and especially during the holidays. And so when I started with this room, I wanted it to feel really warm and swanky and moody and just have like a cool vibe. And so since this room doesn't have a lot of natural sunlight, for people who do like to sleep in or maybe drink a little too much, it's great because it's really dark. And so we just went ahead and kind of put some really deep drapes on the back that have a lot of lining, so it does not get bright in here at all. It's like a little cave, and it's great. And people actually gravitate to this room because they get really good sleep in here. And so my recommendation is, if you are hosting people for the holiday, make sure to sleep in your guest room to make sure that it's comfortable, because there are little nuances like lighting that really matter, and your bedding. And so this bed is like a big marshmallow. I love it. And back to the Dutch Euros, these are so great because they're really easy to pull off the bed. And once again, they're so big that they're great to lean up against. And I've also gotten this really beautiful faux bois velvet that I did as a bolster in here. And I love the way that the purple and the brown complement each other. And our house actually has exposed wood doors, which is really beautiful. And so I just wanted to kind of push that brown around the room from the doors so that they all worked really well together. And then another thing about your bedding in a guest room is that you want to have options for your guests. So one of the things that I do is I'll always include 2 sleeping pillows. One of them is firm and one of them is soft. And then also be aware people have allergies. So you may see if goose feather or something like that is something that they're allergic to, and opt for down. So one of the things that I love is somewhere for your guests to be able to put their bag, or maybe if they brought like a jacket, if you have like a wedding event that they're going to. This is a valet. I think I got it for $20. You can find these all the time. Facebook Marketplace has them. Antique stores have them. They're everywhere, begging to be used. And so what I'll typically do is put a robe on here for my guests. But for the holiday season, I thought it'd be fun to pop like a little sweater on here, a tacky Christmas sweater, just so that it feels festive. And once again, those little nods that show that you cared about someone and you thought about a way that they would feel welcome is a really great way to entertain your guests. And I'm telling you, please, please, this holiday season, have a luggage rack for your guests. One of the things that happened to me one season, I was staying at a house and there was nowhere for me to put my bag elevated. And what happened was that night, it was really dark, just like it gets in this room. And I was making my way to the bathroom, didn't see my bag in the floor, fell over it and knocked my whole face into the nightstand. And I was so bruised the next day and terrified from there on out to go to the bathroom. So I highly encourage that you have something for someone to put their bags on when they come and stay with you, so that you can avoid some situations like that. And as far as just like the design of this room, when I started with this mauve color, my husband thought it was purple. And of course, one of our rival schools is purple. So he was like, I don't want a purple room in my house. And I was like, it's mauve, chill. So we painted it this mauve color, and it takes on such a beautiful glow throughout the day. And back to that thing about lampshades. So these are pink purple, they're from Moi, they're gorgeous. I just recently got them. And they just cast such a pretty glow in the room when you have them on. They kind of warm up the walls. And so that's one of those things that I love to do to a space, is just add that extra little element that can help your color tones feel the way that you want them to. And then I usually do a little floral arrangement in my guest rooms too. And this holiday season, I'm incorporating all kinds of fun colors. And so I wanted to do pinks and purples in here. My art collection that I've been working on, I recently acquired this piece and I think it's so fun. It's a parrot. And when I saw it, I thought that the colors just matched this room so well. And they kind of pulled those pinks that I'm kind of starting to work into the space. And it's an oil painting, so it's really thick and beautiful. And I also like to have a reading space if I can swing it in a room. And so I found this really beautiful chair in Atlanta, and it's actually got hide, and these are supposed to look like elk horns. They're faux. It's also fun to have a little welcome gift if you want for your guests. It could be something as simple as some warm socks, but just something that once again shows that you cared about them and that they're welcome at your house. All right, let's take you to my other guest room, which everyone says is their favorite. All right, so welcome to my blue guest room. I love this space, and so do all of my guests. And one of the things that I wanted to do, I knew in one room of my house, was really embrace traditional Southern interiors. So I actually did a lot of research about this room as I was getting started on it. And all the wall moldings that I've added to each one of these bedrooms was not there prior. And all the rooms were originally different shades of browns and cream tones that were obviously very popular in the early 2000s design. And so you can imagine the contrast when I painted this ultra bright cornflower blue color. When I first walked in here, I was nervous. I was like, what have I done? This is way too pigmented. I'm never going to be able to make this work. But I had done it, and I slept in here at the time. So when we were first moving into this house, I painted all the rooms first, and I did all the wall molding first before I moved any furniture or bought anything. And so I actually slept in this room on an air mattress for like 2 months while we were in the process of moving. And as I stayed there, even though I was thinking about changing it, the color that this took on during the day and during the night was so beautiful that I thought I'd be a fool to change this color because the way that it captures the light is so pretty and it's so relaxing. And it's called Respite by Sherwin-Williams. And so once I realized I really did love the color, I realized I had to make it work. And so I had to get a lot of fabric samples to make sure that the colors all worked in this space. So the first one that I found that I thought highlighted it really great was this canopy fabric from Schumacher. And it kind of helped make this blue feel more traditional than it may have lended itself to before. This color to me is a little modern because it's so bright. And so once I blended in that cornflower of the valance, it really took on a whole new look. And this is actually something I've had for years and years and years. And it worked well in this space. And so I just kept it and then decided to work on my bedding. And so I found these green. And one of my favorite color matches in design is blue and green. I love the way that it looks. And I heard a designer once say that if you work with colors that are already in nature that work well together, you'll never have a problem mixing things in interior design. And I think that that's such a good tip. And so, for example, this has a lot of really beautiful flowers. This is a gorgeous chintz, also super traditional. And so I grabbed this chintz fabric first because I knew it went so great with my check. And then I just kind of pulled colors out of here. So I found this really pretty blue accent. I don't usually put monograms in guest bedrooms, although if you wanted to just do your last name as a monogram, I think that'd be fine. But I do like it to feel more like it's their space when they're here. So I usually try to keep monograms out of the bedroom or very minimal. And so this green, I pulled it in from this, and it really just kind of brought everything to life. And these are my favorite thing. Once again, they are not electrified in the sense that I had an electrician come. This little gold beam here covers a cord, and then it's tucked behind. So these actually didn't have to get wired into the wall, and they work great as a little reading light when people come and stay here overnight. So when I was going to select nightstands for this space, I knew I wanted something that would kind of ground all this color. And so a really great way to do that is to infuse a natural brown, and that really helps kind of play down all this brightness that I've got going on in here. And I love bamboo. I've become a sucker for it, that and rattan and wicker. And so I found these, and one of the things I like about them is not only the height is really great, but they do have a little drawer. So if you need to tuck away Kleenex or whatever for your guests, the Wi-Fi password, you can put it right away. I think it's nice to have a little bit of storage where you can. And then I found these really cute, sweet inlay lamps, and I loved the ruffle. And this room's kind of feminine, but I think it's fun and it's playful. And so because this was so feminine, I decided to also add in a little scalloped shade, and these are also custom. And I love the glow of just a plain white shade, especially we've got so much going on in here that this part needed to be a little quiet. So this is just enough light, and you've obviously got two choices in here, which is really great for when you're staying. And then when I was picking my floral for the room, one of the things I like to do is also work in colors that aren't necessarily in the space, but that just kind of liven things up like I did in my dining room. And so I found these really cute sweet peas and just some really pretty, beautiful lighter tones, even worked some mint in here. And it just kind of helps everything come to life when you use a color that you're not already using in this space when you're doing your floral arrangements. And then to add a little bit of pizzazz, I found this super fun ball garland at a local store here, and I just thought it was happy. And so I just laid it across the top, super simple, and then just took a little boxwood wreath and popped it on top of there with a nail. And you know, something as simple as that can go ahead and take your guest room to where it feels festive. And I just think it's really easy, and you don't have to overdo it. This piece was given to me by my good friend Daniel, and for a discount. And I love the way that it looks. This was the first of his floral series, and he uses a lot of really heavy oil paint. And so if you look close, in each one of these brush strokes is multiple colors of paint that he's blended. And he has a huge palette that he works with, and he pops them on top of each other, and he can keep reworking with it since it is oil. And in fact, this took like almost half a year to dry. I actually hung it while it was wet, which was a little nerve-wracking. I was like, please don't fall. But that's a nice thing about oil paint that I really love, and it really brought this room to life with these big walls that I have. And another thing that I really like in a guest room outside of a chair is a little place to do your makeup and hair. And so since I had a little bit more space over here, I put a desk, and there are outlets down here. So it's really a great place for someone who's getting ready for an event to be able to come over here and do their hair and makeup. And you got a lot of natural light, which is great, and a comfy little bench. And I usually pop a little blanket on the side for if anyone needs it while they're cuddling up at night. And the last thing that I just want to point out in this room are my draperies that I just got done. These are balloon shades, and I would have never thought that I would put this in a house originally, just because they are very traditional. And when I was finishing this room, I just thought it still needed something that could carry all the pizzazz that I have going on in the bed. And so I found this gorgeous linen fabric that's the same color as the walls. And that's one of my tricks, is I usually try to take the color on the wall and match it to the shade, because it kind of helps everything feel like an extension of the wall, and it doesn't break up the space where it feels smaller. So that's a great little way to work your colors in and make the space feel bigger. And then I added this fun pom-pom trim that I thought was just really cute and feminine, and it just made this space feel really intentional and whimsical and traditional, which is kind of what I was looking for. And I really do think if you can work it in, having something living in a room just makes you feel better. So I found this gorgeous, I love a fiddly fern. I love ferns in general. I found this at a local store and popped it in a super cute little moss vase. But just having a little green, having something living, just makes the space feel good. And you'll notice it once you work it into a room. And the last thing that I love to use is a bed tray. And these are great for if you want your guests to feel comfortable on a weekend. You can pop some magazines in here, bring them some coffee up. They get to enjoy their space. I think one of the things about having guests or being a guest is that sometimes you kind of feel pressure to always be on and around the people that you're staying with or the people that you're hosting. And so doing this gives them a nod that they can have some quiet time. And I think it's a really great way to make your guests feel comfortable and feel like they can have some quiet to themselves when they're staying at your house. What home means to me is telling your story and making sure that you're including a lot of things that are from your past, whether it's from somewhere that you grew up or a member of your family, keeping heirlooms. All these little touches are what makes your home your home. It doesn't always have to look like it's a stage that nobody can touch. It should always be something that's comfortable and easy and inviting and makes people want to stick around.
Merry Christmas!
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.